You know that moment when the fan base can feel the roster just can't live on promise anymore? That's where the Patriots are right now. The defense has expensive talent that has to answer. The offense has a rookie who could make life easier for Drake Maye in the money areas. The offensive line got a huge bet to protect the blind side. And right in the middle of all that, the league is starting to recognize a piece Foxborough already needed to see as a pillar. Hit that like button because today's conversation is emotional, but it's also about accountability. New England didn't build this group to ask for patience. They built it to prove something. Christian Barmore is the kind of player who gets inside a fan's head because we've already seen what he can be. This is not empty projection. In 2023, before that big extension, he looked like he was stepping through that door between being a good player and becoming the kind of defender who changes the opponent's offensive plan. 64 tackles, 8.5 sacks, 16 quarterback hits, and 13.5 tackles for loss. For a defensive tackle, that is not background player production. That is threat production. Then the story got tough. His 2024 season ended after only 4 games because of blood clots. And when he came back and played all 17 games last year, the impact didn't feel the same. 29 tackles and 5.5 sacks. I know interior defensive line play doesn't live only on the stat sheet, and any fan who watches trench football understands that. But there's also a reality you can't keep pushing down the road. Barmore carries a $17.1 million cap hit, 4th highest on the team, inside a 4-year, $84 million contract. So the question inside Foxborough is not whether he has talent. Nobody is arguing that. The question is whether that talent is going to start dominating Sunday after Sunday again. That's where Zach Kuhr comes in. The new defensive coordinator didn't sound like somebody just trying to sell hope to the fan base. He sounded like somebody who has seen a real change inside the building. Kuhr said Barmore came in with a great attitude to improve, has been more active in meetings, really locked into the work, and wants to find out how far he can go. That line matters because sometimes what wakes a player back up isn't just health, money, or outside pressure. Sometimes it's looking around the team, feeling that winning might actually be within reach, and realizing the train is moving with or without you. To me, that's the emotional core of this story. Barmore isn't only trying to justify a contract, he's trying to get back that image of force, and the Patriots need that like oxygen. Christian Gonzalez is already a star. Milton Williams came in with status and production. But for this defense to become truly elite, Barmore has to become the guy who wrecks the middle of the pocket, forces double teams, and steals half a second of comfort from the quarterback. Half a second in the NFL turns into a sack, a pick, a dead drive. And I'll defend New England here. Paying big money for defensive line talent is not crazy when the player changes games. The pressure exists because the ceiling is massive. If Barmore comes back locked in, physical, hungry, next to Milton Williams, this defense stops being only good on paper and starts carrying the kind of weight that makes opponents feel it on Monday morning. But if the defense needs Barmore to bring fear back through the middle, the offense needs something different. Easy trust for Drake Maye. That's where Eli Raridon starts to look a lot more interesting than a lot of people realized on draft day. There's an almost quiet relationship between a young quarterback and a tight end. It's not always the prettiest play in the highlight reel. It doesn't always become the headline. But when the pocket tightens, when the red zone shrinks, when third down needs somebody in the right spot, the tight end can become the quarterback's best friend. And for Drake Maye, Eli Raridon has a real chance to take on that role. He arrived as the 95th pick in the draft, out of Notre Dame, and it's not hard to see why New England liked the profile. Raridon has size, versatility, ball-in-hand ability, and that basketball background where space, body control, and timing matter so much. Justin Mello called him an overlooked prospect in a deep tight end class, pointing out that Raridon came back from an ACL injury early in his career and reached 482 yards in 2025, while averaging 15.1 yards per catch. That is real explosiveness for the position. The situation got even more important because Julian Hill suffered a season-ending injury during OTAs and landed on injured reserve. Suddenly, the TE2 role is not some distant conversation anymore. Raridon may have to play meaningful snaps as a blocker, help the run game, and show up in the areas where Austin Hooper was useful before going back to Atlanta. And I really like the way he described himself. Versatile, able to contribute in the passing game and the blocking game, able to create explosive plays with the ball and dominate defenders in the run game. That doesn't sound like a player asking to be hidden. That sounds like someone who understands that, in Foxborough, a tight end has to embrace the whole job. Josh McDaniels praised his attitude and his desire to improve. Mike Vrabel talked about a willing, conscientious player who learns quickly, even with new terminology, and a lot of things changing from college. That part catches my attention because talent without processing turns into frustration. But when a rookie starts absorbing things fast and still shows speed when he plays free, coaches start looking for ways to put that guy on the field. I'm not saying Raridon has to walk in as a star. Hunter Henry is still the captain of that room and the most reliable target. But if New England found a young, affordable Big TE2 with early chemistry with Maye and the ability to block, that changes the texture of the offense. It helps play action. It helps the red zone. It helps the quarterback avoid living only on difficult throws outside the numbers. And after what this franchise has already seen when tight ends become central pieces of the plan, no Patriots fan should treat this story like some tiny detail. But there's a difference between giving Drake Maye options and truly protecting his season. Raridon can open doors, yes, but if the offensive line breaks again in the biggest moments, everything else gets heavier. That is exactly why Alijah Vera-Tucker's arrival comes with both hope and a knot in your stomach. The Patriots walked out of that Super Bowl against Seattle with the wound wide open. The offensive line wasn't just an occasional issue. It became a major liability in the playoffs, right when everything gets faster, more physical, and more unforgiving. And when a team loses like that, with the quarterback needing more stability, you can't pretend the answer was only going to come from speeches. It had to come through investment. Vera-Tucker arrived on a 3-year, $48 million deal after spending 4 seasons with the Jets as a former first-round pick. The risk is the injury history, and I completely understand anyone who looked at that number and thought, did New England pay too much? That concern is not irrational. A guard with recurring injuries, a big contract, and immediate expectations is exactly the kind of mix that makes any fan base nervous. Then you look at the other side, and that's why I can defend the bet. When Vera-Tucker is on the field, his level is extremely high. Chad Graff pointed out that multiple teams were willing to take the risk because, despite the injuries, his play when available has been exceptional. He is good in pass protection, excellent as a run blocker, and has the size, athleticism, and versatility to fit different schemes. Beyond that, he can bring calm to a young offensive line, playing between Will Campbell and Wilson. That word, calm, might be the most important word in this entire segment. Drake Maye doesn't just need 5 bodies in front of him. He needs a wall that communicates, adjusts, breathes under pressure, and doesn't collapse when the defense starts disguising blitzes. Campbell had a rough postseason. That is part of growth, but it also shows why placing a talented veteran next to him could speed up the correction. And one detail can't get lost here. The left side is Maye's blind side. If that part of the line stabilizes, New England changes what it can call. Josh McDaniels can hold concepts longer. Maye can attack the intermediate area with more confidence. The run game can stop being an attempt and start becoming an identity. Suddenly, the offense is not trapped in hero ball mode. So yes, Vera-Tucker is a risk, but there's passive risk and aggressive risk. Passive risk is watching the line fail in January and coming back with cheap patches. Aggressive risk is paying for a player who, if healthy, could become one of the biggest steals on the roster. I would rather see a Patriots team try to solve the problem with ambition than see a Patriots team save money while the AFC runs past them. And that logic of paying for impact takes us right back to the defense. Milton Williams got a contract that scared a lot of people at first, but now the league is starting to say out loud what New England bet on early. This man is a pillar. Milton Williams being voted the 9th best defensive tackle in the NFL in an ESPN survey of more than 70 evaluators, including coaches, executives, and scouts, is not just a nice offseason compliment. That is league recognition. That is people inside the game looking at the film and saying, New England was right to pay big. Remember the context. When the Patriots gave Williams 4 years and $104 million in March of 2025, a lot of people rolled their eyes. He came from the Eagles. Some viewed him as a rotational lineman, and the price felt too high for someone who had not fully been treated like a star yet. Then the football answered. Even while limited by a high ankle sprain and playing 12 games, he ranked 3rd among interior linemen in pressure rate at 9.6%. He also added 8 tackles for loss, 3.5 sacks, and led qualified Patriots defensive linemen in pass rush win rate and run stop win rate. That is the kind of production that doesn't always show up cleanly in individual box scores, but it changes life for everybody around him. When Williams wins fast, the edge rusher breathes. When he shuts down the run, the linebacker plays cleaner. When he moves across the defensive front, the coordinator gets freedom to create problems without constantly changing personnel. One evaluator said New England has an anchor up front, that the defense wasn't the same without him, and described Williams as explosive, strong, high effort, and effective across the line. That fits exactly what Mike Vrabel and Zach Core need, players who aren't just good in one little box, but can answer in multiple looks. And this story connects directly back to Barmore. Because if Williams is already being recognized as a top 10 player at the position, and Christian Gonzalez has also shown up among the league's best at his spot, the Patriots have real defensive stars. That is not fan imagination. The question now is turning individual recognition into a defense that decides big games. I want the fan base's read in the comments. If you were answering the critics today, would you say Williams has already justified the $104 million, or does he still need a full, healthy season to close that debate? Because I'm sitting right here. The contract was heavy, yes, but heavy players change heavy franchises. And if Williams and Barmore deliver together, New England won't have to ask for respect. They'll take it. In the end, these four stories tell the same story through different doors. The Patriots are trying to turn promise into presence. Barmore needs to bring back the impact his contract demands. Raridon could become a quiet helper for Drake Maye. Vera-Tucker is the bold bet to fix a flaw that cost them badly. Williams is already starting to earn respect from people who live inside this league. If that foundation answers, Foxborough gets back something it has been missing: confidence with consequences. If you want to track every signal of this rebuild with me, subscribe to the channel. Around here, we root, we demand, and we don't lower the standard.